Last year, controversial mining magnate Brett Kebble was killed, and close family friend Glenn Agliotti has been arrested for his murder. But Agliotti is also a friend of Police Commissioner Jackie Selebi. Tonight, a conversation with Paul O'Sullivan, the man who compiled a dossier on a criminal organisation that he says includes Agliotti and Selebi. Paul O'Sullivan, thank you so very much for joining us and welcome to the programme.
Thanks, Tumi.
Well, first off, let's just try to reverse a little bit and go back to the moment when you recognised that you certainly do have a bit of a vendetta. You've said so publicly. Why? What is this really about for you?
Well, I don't think I've said I have a vendetta, and I don't think I've said it publicly. I've been accused of having an axe to grind. And I've said, well, what one needs to do is contrast the grinding of the axe with setting the record straight and getting some justice over here. And I think if somebody said to me, are you looking for justice? The answer would be yes.
Why is it then so important for you to do it in this fashion? I mean, many people will say, let me deal directly with the issues, and because I don't necessarily want this to consume my life, I'll do it in a quieter fashion. Why this particular route?
You know, until the beginning of November, actually nobody knew about Paul O'Sullivan. Selebi called a press conference. At that press conference, he went to great pains to explain to people that he couldn't be bought for 50,000 rand and that this was all part of a smear campaign, and he named me as being the person behind the smear campaign. And I went to great pains prior to that to actually reject the many advances that were being made against me by the media, who were asking to see my file. And I said, I'm sorry, it's not for public consumption. Then I have this what I can only class as being a vicious attack being made against me by Selebi and his cronies. They were all sitting there with him when the attack was made. And apart from the lies they told to the people of South Africa, they named me as the person behind the smear campaign. You know, they were referring specifically to a story that appeared in the Sunday Times, which talked about a diary which allegedly was found in the boot of Agliotti's motor car. Now, I didn't even know about that diary until I saw the story in the Sunday Times. I didn't know the Sunday Times were writing that weekend until Selebi's friend and colleague, Commissioner Price, phoned me and started screaming down the phone at me about me being behind the story in the Sunday Times. I then went out and bought the Sunday Times and read the story. And whilst I might have known some of the details that were in the story, I certainly didn't know about the diary.
When one listens to the conversations, whether you're talking about Mr. Selebi himself or you, there's a lot of smear campaign accusations. There's a smear campaign against him, there's a smear campaign against you. So it's very easy for one to get caught up with it. So let's talk about some of the backup that you have for this.
Let's just talk about the smear campaign first. I'm not a public official. I don't get paid by the taxpayer in this country, and I'm not in charge of 130,000 men that are supposed to be controlling crime in this country. I'm a private citizen, and I'm going about my daily life, albeit a changed daily life since I came across Selebi.
Paul, there are many people who are going to say, you say I'm just an ordinary citizen going about my daily life. When you start accusing people of attempted murder and fraud and the like, that isn't going about your daily life.
I didn't accuse anybody of attempted murder or fraud. What happened to me, happened at a time in my life when I wasn't ready for what happened to me. I took on a massive task. I was appointed as the executive in charge of security at the 10 airports in South Africa. And I got stuck into that task with a fair amount of endeavor, and I started dealing with the problems that were facing the airports. Now, within 2 or 3 months of my appointment, there'd been several very high-profile robberies at the airports. People had been murdered, other people had been shot, other people had been robbed. We even had a woman raped in one of the toilets at the airport. So I took a look at this, and I found that of the 10 airports under Axis control, 99.9% in rand value and incident numbers of all the problems at the airports were taking place at Joburg International Airport. As it was then, it's now OR Tambo International. I realized that in order for anything to be done, that would have to be the starting point. I was in New York when 9/11 took place, and I saw for myself firsthand the effects of that. And I realized that if we continued the way we were continuing at that moment in time, with the same security and the same corruption that's going on at the airports, that if we continued like that, it was only a matter of time before a plane would be blown out of the sky after taking off from Johannesburg International Airport. I therefore, together with my chairman, set about changing things. I was working 7 days a week, between 12 and 15 hours a day, and we were starting to make a difference. My life changed, however, when I took a decision to fire the contractors at the airports. They still had 130 million rand to run on their contracts, and I sat there with Professor or Mr. Ngwenya, and he tells me, you don't know who you're dealing with. You can't take decisions like this. And I'll be hearing more about it. He's sitting in prison today, where he belongs incidentally, but as a result of that, strange things started happening. My chairman was being followed. There was a shootout at his house between his bodyguards and unknown persons. People tried to tap his phone. In fact, they came to his house pretending to be Telkom to put some device on his phone. I chased them away. I was being followed. I had senior police officers making investigations against me. And
but
then
you also say that you were attacked, no? Is that
I was
is that
attacked.
yes.
We'll come to that. Okay. So then I get a visit by a couple of businessmen, very prominent businessmen, and they tell me that they are aware of a secret meeting that has taken place between Jackie Celebi and the CEO of this company, Kusalani Security, Noel Ngwenya. And at that meeting, they discussed ways of how they were going to get rid of Paul O'Sullivan. And when these guys came to me with this story, I thought, no, this must be balderdash. You know, there's no way the Commissioner of Police is going to get involved in these sort of matters. So I was shocked 2 days later when I get a phone call from Andre Price, which is Celebi's 2IC, to tell me that Celebi wants an urgent meeting with me. I go to that meeting at the airport, and here I've got Celebi now telling me not to cancel this contract. And I point out to him that it's not his business. It's got nothing to do with him. It's a private contract between the airports company and the contractors. And I have found, firstly, that the contract was corruptly awarded, and secondly, that the contractors themselves were committing fraud by over-invoicing for heads that weren't even on the airports. And thirdly, they were totally incompetent. They weren't able to detect a bomb going through an X-ray machine. Now, I fired them. And interestingly enough, the day after I sent them the letter telling them that they were being fired, I get a letter back from them telling me that I've gone against the direct instructions of Commissioner Celebi. Now, if Celebi has a meeting with me and tells me not to fire these contractors, and I fire them, and they send me a letter saying that I'm going against the direct instructions of Commissioner Celebi, it's crystal clear that there's some collusion going on between Celebi and these contractors.